I'm Sarah Matthews, 34, and I never thought my own sister would betray me for money. The $56,000 from our parents' estate disappeared, and Melissa swore she knew nothing about it. I believed her, until my 9-year-old daughter Lily noticed something no adult caught. One innocent observation at a family dinner shattered our entire family's foundation and exposed a web of lies going back 15 years. What happened next changed everything. Before I dive into this unbelievable story, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments, and don't forget to hit that like and subscribe button if family revenge stories are your guilty pleasure. Trust me, what happened in our family might make you reconsider what blood loyalty really means. Now, let's get into how my sister's perfect facade came crashing down. Growing up, Melissa was always the golden child. 3 years older than me, she excelled at everything: straight A's in school, captain of the debate team, and the first in our family to graduate from an Ivy League college. Our parents never tried to hide their pride in her accomplishments, often at the expense of acknowledging mine. I didn't resent her for it, that's just how things were in the Matthews household. I accepted my role as the dependable, but unremarkable younger sister, who would never quite measure up. Our personalities were polar opposites. Melissa was charismatic, ambitious, and calculated. She had a natural ability to charm anyone she met, making her the center of attention at every family gathering. I was more reserved, preferring genuine connections over superficial charm. While she pursued a high-powered career in finance in New York, I stayed in our hometown of Columbus, Ohio, became an elementary school teacher, and started a family with my husband, David. Despite our differences, I thought we maintained a decent relationship. We'd call each other on birthdays, exchange Christmas gifts, and she'd visit a couple times a year. Melissa never married or had children, often commenting that her career was her priority. She seemed to view my life choices with a mixture of pity and condescension, occasionally dropping comments like, "I don't know how you do it on a teacher's salary," or "Don't you ever wish you'd done something more ambitious?" Our parents, Robert and Eleanor Matthews, were proud Midwesterners who built a modest but comfortable life. Dad owned a successful hardware store, while Mom taught piano lessons from our living room. They weren't wealthy by any means, but they were careful with money, investing wisely and living below their means. They instilled in us the value of hard work and financial responsibility, lessons I took to heart, but always suspected Melissa saw as quaint limitations to overcome. When Dad was diagnosed with early-onset Alzheimer's 5 years ago, our family dynamic shifted. Mom became his primary caregiver, and I helped as much as I could, taking Dad to appointments and giving Mom much-needed breaks. Melissa would call more frequently, asking for updates, but rarely visited. She always had an excuse: an important meeting, a business trip, a client emergency. I understood her career demands, but part of me wondered if she simply couldn't bear to see our strong, capable father deteriorate. Mom passed away unexpectedly from a heart attack 3 years ago. The shock devastated all of us, especially Dad, who, despite his cognitive decline, understood he had lost his partner of 42 years. Melissa flew in for the funeral, stayed for 4 days, then returned to New York, leaving me to handle Dad's increasing care needs. She called regularly to check in, but the burden of daily caregiving fell entirely on my shoulders. Dad's condition worsened rapidly after Mom's death. Within 6 months, it became clear he couldn't live independently anymore. After discussing options with Melissa, we decided a memory care facility would provide the specialized care he needed. The facility was expensive, $5,000 a month, but Mom and Dad had saved for this possibility. They had approximately $180,000 in a joint account earmarked for medical expenses, plus their house and other assets. As Dad's cognitive abilities declined, Melissa suggested we should become co-powers of attorney to manage his finances and healthcare decisions. It made sense, and I agreed without hesitation. We met with the family lawyer, signed the necessary paperwork, and gained legal authority to act on Dad's behalf. I handled his daily needs and medical decisions, while Melissa, with her financial expertise, managed his accounts and investments. For 2 years, this arrangement worked smoothly. Melissa sent monthly statements showing Dad's remaining funds, and I trusted her completely. She'd occasionally mentioned making smart investments that were protecting our inheritance, but I was more concerned with Dad's comfort and care than any future inheritance. Last year, Dad's health took a sharp decline. Pneumonia, combined with his advanced Alzheimer's, meant his body was shutting down. The doctors prepared us for the inevitable, and Melissa flew in from New York. For the first time in years, we sat together at Dad's bedside, reminiscing about our childhood and telling him how much we loved him, even though we weren't sure he could understand us anymore. Dad passed peacefully in his sleep with both his daughters nearby. Through my grief, I felt a small comfort knowing Melissa and I had come together in his final days. Little did I know that beneath her sympathetic exterior and shared tears, my sister was already executing a plan that would tear our family apart in ways I never could have imagined. 2 months after Dad's funeral, I received a call from the family lawyer, Mr. Harrington, about the reading of the will. He explained that both Melissa and I needed to be present, so we scheduled a meeting for the following week when Melissa could fly in from New York. I was anxious, but not particularly concerned about the contents of the will. Dad had always been fair, and I assumed his assets would be divided equally between us. The day of the meeting, Melissa arrived at my house in a sleek black rental car, dressed impeccably in a designer suit that probably cost more than my monthly mortgage payment. She hugged me tightly, commenting on how tired I looked and suggesting I should treat myself to a spa day. It was a typical Melissa backhanded compliment, but I brushed it off. We had more important matters to discuss. Mr. Harrington's office was in a modest building downtown, nothing flashy but professional. He welcomed us warmly, offering condolences again before getting down to business. Dad's will was straightforward: the house and its contents would be sold, and all assets would be divided equally between Melissa and me after outstanding debts were paid. The medical care account, which should have had around $56,000 remaining after all the facility payments, would also be split. Before we proceed with distributing the assets, Mr. Harrington said, shuffling through some papers, I need to confirm the current balance of your father's accounts. Melissa immediately produced a folder containing statements and transaction records. I've managed the accounts meticulously, she said. Unfortunately, the medical expenses depleted the care fund completely. The memory care facility was expensive, and there were additional costs for medications and treatments not covered by insurance. Mr. Harrington reviewed the documents while I sat in stunned silence. How could the money be gone? Dad had been in the same facility, with the same care plan for years. The monthly costs were consistent, and there should have been money left over. These statements show the account was emptied 3 weeks ago, Mr. Harrington noted, looking up at Melissa with a questioning expression. Yes, she replied smoothly. There were final medical bills, funeral expenses, and some outstanding debts Dad had that needed to be settled immediately. Something didn't add up. I had paid for the funeral myself, planning to reimburse myself from Dad's estate later. And what outstanding debts? Dad was meticulous about finances his entire life. Melissa, I interrupted, what debts are you talking about? And why wasn't I consulted before these payments were made? We are co-powers of attorney. She gave me a pitying look. Sarah, you were grieving. I didn't want to burden you with financial details. I handled everything to spare you the stress. Her explanation sounded reasonable, but a knot formed in my stomach. I asked to see the statements, and Melissa handed them over without hesitation. The documents showed a series of withdrawals over the past 6 months, culminating in a final withdrawal that emptied the account. Each transaction had a vague description: medical expenses, healthcare services, equipment rental. Do you have receipts for these expenses? I asked, my voice steadier than I felt. Of course, Melissa replied, but her smile tightened slightly. They are not with me, but I can send them to you. Mr. Harrington cleared his throat. That would be helpful for the estate records. In the meantime, we can proceed with the house sale. The current market value is approximately $320,000. After the mortgage is paid off, you'll each receive roughly $120,000. The meeting concluded with Mr. Harrington explaining the next steps. As we left his office, I couldn't shake the feeling that something was very wrong. Melissa insisted on taking me to lunch at an upscale restaurant downtown, where she talked enthusiastically about investment opportunities for my inheritance and her plans to renovate her Manhattan apartment. You should visit New York, she said, sipping her sparkling water. You and David could use a getaway, and Lily would love the museums. My treat, of course. Her generosity felt hollow. Throughout lunch, I kept thinking about those vague transactions and the missing $56,000. When I returned home, I called the memory care facility and spoke to the billing department. They confirmed what I suspected: all bills had been paid on time, but there had been no unusual expenses in the past 6 months. Dad's care plan had remained unchanged until his final week. That night, after Lily went to bed, I confided in David about my suspicions. He suggested I ask Melissa directly for the receipts before jumping to conclusions. There could be a simple explanation, he said. Maybe she made a mistake or misunderstood something. The next morning, I called Melissa and asked about the receipts again. She promised to email them that day, but by evening, nothing had arrived. I called again the following day, and she claimed to be busy with a work crisis, but would send them soon. This pattern continued for a week until I finally received an email with several PDF attachments. The receipts looked legitimate at first glance: professional letterhead, itemized charges, official-looking stamps, but upon closer inspection, I noticed inconsistencies. The phone numbers for several healthcare providers didn't match their websites. One receipt was dated on a Sunday, when the facility's administrative office was closed. Another was for specialized therapy Dad had never received, according to his care plan. I printed everything and spread it across our dining room table, making notes and highlighting discrepancies. David stood behind me, his expression growing more concerned as I explained each problem. These look fabricated, he said finally. The question is, why would Melissa need to fake expenses? What happened to that money? The answer came to me in a flash of clarity that made my blood run cold. Just before Dad's health declined, Melissa had mentioned investment troubles, something about a temporary setback with a high-risk venture. She'd brushed it off as insignificant, but what if it wasn't? What if she had taken Dad's money to cover her own financial problems? The thought made me physically ill. My own sister, stealing from our dying father. It seemed unthinkable, yet the evidence was mounting. I needed proof before confronting her, solid, undeniable proof that even Melissa couldn't talk her way around. I decided to dig deeper, requesting Dad's complete bank records from the past year. As co-power of attorney, I had every right to access this information. What I found confirmed my worst fears and revealed that the betrayal ran even deeper than I had imagined. Armed with bank statements, falsified receipts, and a righteous anger I'd never felt before, I invited Melissa to dinner at my house the night before she was scheduled to fly back to New York. I told her I wanted to discuss potential renovations to Dad's house before putting it on the market. She agreed readily, suggesting we open a bottle of wine and brainstorm ideas to maximize the property value. I spent the day preparing, not just dinner but my approach. David offered to take Lily to his mother's house for the evening, sensing the confrontation ahead wasn't something a child should witness. I declined. Something told me having Lily present might actually be beneficial. Melissa always behaved more carefully around her niece, whom she claimed to adore despite seeing her only a few times a year. Melissa arrived at 6, bringing an expensive bottle of red wine and a small gift for Lily, a charm bracelet from a high-end jewelry store. Every young lady needs to start her collection early, she said with a wink as Lily unwrapped it. My daughter thanked her politely, but seemed unimpressed by the lavish gift. She'd always been perceptive about people's intentions, sometimes unnervingly so. Dinner began pleasantly enough. I'd made lasagna, Melissa's favorite childhood meal, and she complimented my cooking enthusiastically. We reminisced about family dinners from our youth, and for a moment, I almost forgot why I'd really invited her over. Almost. So, Melissa said, refilling her wine glass, about the house. I think we should consider updating the kitchen before listing it. Buyers expect stainless steel appliances and granite countertops these days. I nodded absently, then steered the conversation where I needed it to go. Before we discuss renovations, I wanted to talk about Dad's medical expenses. I'm still confused about some of those final costs. Melissa's smile faltered slightly before returning to full wattage. Oh, Sarah, I told you not to worry about all that. It was complicated, various specialists, equipment rentals, medications not covered by insurance. The costs add up quickly. That's just it, I said, pulling a folder from beside my chair. I've been speaking with the care facility, and they have no record of these additional expenses. I laid out the statements and receipt copies on the table beside our dinner plates. In fact, when I showed them these receipts you sent me, they confirmed they are not legitimate. The color drained from Melissa's face, but she recovered quickly. There must be some misunderstanding. Perhaps they didn't properly record everything. You know how inefficient these places can be with paperwork. It's not just one receipt, Melissa. It's all of them. I pulled out more documents from the folder. I have Dad's complete bank records here. They show regular withdrawals to ML Investments starting 6 months before he died. That's your company, isn't it? Your initials. Melissa Lawson. Melissa's expression hardened. You had no right to investigate me like this. I managed Dad's finances because you were too busy playing house to understand complex investment strategies. I was protecting his assets, our inheritance. By transferring his money to your personal accounts. I pushed another document across the table. This is a statement from your investment firm. Dad was never a client there. These weren't investments for his benefit, they were for yours. Lily, who had been quietly eating her dessert and seemingly ignoring our increasingly tense conversation, suddenly spoke up. Aunt Melissa, is that why you have a new watch? Daddy said it costs more than our car. Melissa's hand automatically went to her wrist, where an elegant Patek Philippe gleamed. David had indeed commented on it earlier, whispering to me that it was worth at least $40,000. No, sweetie, Melissa said with a forced laugh. This was a gift from a client. But you told Grandma on the phone it was a gift to yourself, because you deserved it, Lily continued innocently. I heard you when I was playing in her room last Christmas. You said you finally had the money to buy what you deserved. I stared at my daughter in shock. Last Christmas was when the first large withdrawal from Dad's account had occurred. Melissa must have called Mom while visiting, not realizing Lily was within earshot. Melissa's face contorted with anger. You're using a child to spy on me now. That's low, Sarah, even for you. I didn't tell her to say anything, I replied calmly. But children notice more than we give them credit for. You've always been jealous of me, Melissa hissed, abandoning all pretense of innocence. Mom and Dad gave me more attention because I actually did something with my life instead of settling for mediocrity in this boring suburb. I deserved that money more than you. Her words stung, but they also confirmed what I suspected. So you admit you took it? You stole $56,000 from our dying father. I didn't steal anything. Melissa slammed her hand on the table, making the dishes rattle. I invested years managing his finances, visiting when I could despite my demanding career. What did you do? You lived 30 minutes away, enjoying the comfortable life his money provided through that facility while I worked 80-hour weeks. I was there, I said, my voice trembling with rage. Every single day, I visited him. I held his hand when he couldn't remember his own name. I fed him when he forgot how to use a fork. Where were you, Melissa? Making excuses about work deadlines while I watched our father disappear bit by bit. Lily's eyes had grown wide, darting between her mother and aunt. I immediately regretted allowing her to witness this ugly scene, but it was too late to send her away now. Melissa stood up abruptly, knocking over her wine glass. Red liquid spread across the white tablecloth like blood. You have no proof that would stand up in court. It's your word against mine, and I have the receipts. Falsified receipts, I corrected. And I have statements from the care facility confirming they never issued them. Plus bank records showing direct transfers to your personal accounts. Mr. Harrington is very interested in this information, by the way. As executor of the estate, he has a legal obligation to investigate financial discrepancies. For the first time, fear flickered across Melissa's perfect features. You wouldn't dare take this to court. Think about the family scandal, the legal fees. Is that what Dad would have wanted? Dad would have wanted his money to pay for his care, not your luxury watch and Manhattan renovation, I replied. But you're right about one thing. I don't want a protracted legal battle. So I'm offering you a choice. I laid out my terms. Melissa would repay the $56,000 to the estate immediately, plus interest. She would confess to Mr. Harrington what she had done. In return, I wouldn't press criminal charges for fraud and elder financial abuse, charges that could destroy her finance career and possibly result in jail time. You have until tomorrow morning to decide, I said. Your flight leaves at noon. You can board it with this resolved, or I'll be making calls to the district attorney's office. Melissa grabbed her purse and stormed toward the door. You'll regret this, Sarah. You have no idea what I'm capable of when crossed. After she left, I hugged Lily tightly, apologizing for the scene she'd witnessed. Is Aunt Melissa a bad person? She asked. No, honey, I replied carefully. She made some bad choices, but everyone does sometimes. The important thing is what we do to make things right afterward. I couldn't sleep that night, wondering if I'd pushed too hard or not hard enough. Melissa had always been manipulative, but I'd never seen her so cornered and desperate. I didn't know what to expect when morning came, but I was certain our relationship would never be the same again. The morning after our confrontation, I woke to a text from Melissa, we need to talk. Meet me at Dad's house at 10 a.m. Come alone. The message sent a chill down my spine. Melissa had a key to our father's house, which remained unsold and mostly untouched since his move to the memory care facility 3 years ago. I hadn't been there in weeks, focusing instead on caring for Dad and then handling his funeral arrangements. David insisted on coming with me, concerned about Melissa's state of mind after last night's explosive argument. She said to come alone, I reminded him. And I say that's a terrible idea, he countered. She's desperate and angry. At least let me drive you and wait outside. We compromised. David would drive me, but remain in the car unless I texted him to come in or didn't emerge within 30 minutes. I left Lily with our neighbor, telling her I had a boring grown-up errand to run. The less she knew about this ongoing drama, the better. Dad's modest two-story colonial looked exactly as it had for decades, white with black shutters, neatly trimmed hedges, and Mom's perennial garden now slightly overgrown, but still blooming faithfully. Melissa's rental car sat in the driveway. I took a deep breath, texted David that I was going in, and walked up the familiar path to my childhood home. The door was unlocked. I stepped into the foyer, immediately enveloped by memories and the lingering scent of Mom's favorite potpourri that somehow persisted years after her passing. Melissa! I called out, my voice echoing in the quiet house. In Dad's office, she replied. Her tone was unreadable. I found her sitting at our father's antique desk, surrounded by open boxes and stacks of papers. The wall safe behind the desk stood open and empty. What are you doing? I demanded. Melissa looked up, her expression eerily calm compared to last night's rage. Looking for leverage, she said simply. And I found it. She pushed a manila folder across the desk toward me. I opened it cautiously, then froze as I recognized what I was seeing. Inside were old medical records, my medical records, from 15 years ago, along with a series of letters and legal documents I'd never seen before. Did you know Dad paid off Jason Powell's family? Melissa asked, referring to my college boyfriend. $300,000 to keep them from pressing charges against you after the accident. My hands trembled as I flipped through the documents. What are you talking about? Jason's accident it was just that. An accident. Was it? Melissa's smile was cold. These medical reports show your blood alcohol level was well above the legal limit that night. You were driving drunk, Sarah. Jason didn't fall asleep at the wheel like you told everyone. You were behind the wheel, and you nearly killed him. The room seemed to spin around me. I remembered fragments of that night. A party, too many drinks, Jason insisting he was fine to drive us home. But the next clear memory was waking up in the hospital with minor injuries, being told that Jason had been driving and had fallen asleep, causing us to crash into a tree. Jason had suffered severe injuries requiring multiple surgeries and ending his promising athletic career. This can't be right, I whispered, though the evidence before me was overwhelming. Medical reports with my name clearly listed as the driver. A signed agreement between my father and the Powell family, agreeing to financial compensation in exchange for not pursuing criminal charges against me. Dad's handwritten notes about liquidating investments to raise the money without telling Mom. Oh, it's right, Melissa said, leaning back in Dad's chair. Dad confided in me when he needed help arranging the payments. I was already working in finance then, and he needed advice on how to move that much money without raising red flags. He swore me to secrecy, said he was protecting you because one mistake shouldn't ruin your entire life. I sank into a chair, my legs no longer able to support me. Why didn't he ever tell me? He thought you were genuinely blocked the memory due to trauma. The doctor suggested it was possible. Then years passed, you seemed stable and happy, and he didn't see the point in dredging it all up. Melissa shrugged. Besides, he'd committed insurance fraud and bribed a family to obstruct justice. Not exactly something he was proud of. The implications crashed over me in waves. For 15 years, I'd lived a lie without even knowing it. I'd attended Jason's graduation in a wheelchair, feeling guilty that he'd been hurt driving me home, never suspecting I was actually responsible. I'd sent him annual Christmas cards, each containing a personal note expressing my continued gratitude for his friendship despite the accident that had altered his life path. So here's my counteroffer, Melissa continued, her voice businesslike. You drop this nonsense about the $56,000, and these documents remain our family secret. Otherwise, I wonder how your principal would feel about employing a teacher with a covered-up DUI involving serious injury. Or how David would react learning his wife's entire persona of responsible citizenship is built on a lie. Or how Lily would feel discovering her mother is a hypocrite who lectures about honesty while hiding her own crimes. I felt sick. You would destroy my life over money. No, Sarah. I would protect myself using the same tactics you're employing against me. Melissa gathered the documents back into the folder. Dad protected you because he loved you. I'm giving you the chance to protect yourself. I sat in stunned silence, trying to process everything. The revelation about my past was devastating enough, but Melissa's willingness to use it as blackmail revealed a callousness I hadn't believed possible, even from her. You have until my flight tomorrow, she said, standing up. Drop the accusations about the money, sign a document stating you've reviewed and approved all financial transactions related to Dad's care, and this folder stays buried where Dad intended it to remain. She walked out, leaving me alone in Dad's office surrounded by the ghosts of secrets I never knew existed. I don't know how long I sat there, but eventually, a text from David asking if I was okay snapped me back to the present. I needed time to think, to process both the revelation about my past and Melissa's blackmail attempt. I texted David that I was fine but needed a few more minutes, then began examining the documents more carefully. Something wasn't adding up. The medical reports were authentic, hospital letterhead, doctor signatures, detailed test results showing my blood alcohol level at 0.14, well above the legal limit. The agreement between Dad and the Powell family appeared genuine as well, notarized and signed by all parties. But as I studied Dad's handwritten notes about the financial arrangements, inconsistencies emerged. The dates didn't align with my memories of that period. According to these records, the accident occurred in March 2009, but I distinctly remembered it happening during winter break in December 2008. I had photos of Jason and me at a New Year's Eve party just before returning to campus for the spring semester, after the supposed accident date. I pulled out my phone and searched through my oldest social media posts. There it was. A check-in at Columbus University Medical Center on December 22, 2008, with a caption about a scary night, but grateful to be okay. Melissa's documents dated the accident to March 18, 2009, a discrepancy of nearly 3 months. With growing suspicion, I examined the signatures more closely. Dad's signature on the agreement looked slightly off, the final flourish extended too far, a detail I'd noticed when helping him sign birthday cards in his later years. And my signature on the medical release forms. It wasn't even close to my actual signature. My hands shook as a new possibility formed in my mind. What if these documents were fabricated? What if Melissa, cornered by my discovery of her theft, had created this elaborate blackmail scheme overnight? I needed to confirm my suspicions before confronting her again. I quickly took photos of every document, being careful to capture all details, then replaced everything exactly as I'd found it. As I prepared to leave, a final thought struck me. I needed to find Jason Powell. Hey everyone. I hope you're all on the edge of your seats wondering what happens next in this family drama. Before I continue, if you're enjoying this story about betrayal and secrets, please hit that like button and subscribe to my channel for more real-life stories like this one. Are you watching from somewhere with strong family values? Or maybe you've experienced a similar family betrayal? Let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from. I always love connecting with viewers from around the world. Now, let's get back to how I discovered the truth behind my sister's elaborate scheme. Finding Jason Powell proved easier than I expected. A quick social media search revealed he was now Dr. Jason Powell, an orthopedic surgeon specializing in sports medicine in Cincinnati, just a 2-hour drive from Columbus. His profile showed a smiling man with salt and pepper hair, standing beside a woman and 2 teenage boys. He looked happy and successful, certainly not someone whose life had been ruined by my alleged drunk driving. I debated how to approach him. Showing up unannounced seemed inappropriate, and sending a social media message about such a sensitive topic felt equally wrong. Instead, I called his office and, after navigating the expected gatekeeping from his receptionist, left a message explaining I was an old college friend hoping to reconnect during a visit to Cincinnati. To my surprise, Jason called back within an hour. "Sarah Matthews," he said when I answered, his voice warm with recognition. "It's been 5 years since your last Christmas card. How are you?" We chatted amicably for several minutes, catching up on our lives since college. He asked about David and Lily, and I congratulated him on his thriving practice. Finally, I broached the real reason for my call. "Jason, I need to ask you something about the accident in college," I said, my heart pounding. "I'm dealing with some family issues that have raised questions about what really happened that night." A pause. "What do you mean?" "We've talked about this before. I fell asleep driving you home from that party, crashed into a tree, and wrecked my knee along with my basketball scholarship." "That's what I remember too," I said carefully. "But I've recently seen documents suggesting I was actually driving and was intoxicated. That my father paid your family to cover it up." Jason's laugh was immediate and genuine. "Sarah, that's absurd. You weren't driving, you were asleep in the passenger seat when it happened. And neither of us was drunk. We left that party early because I had a game the next day, remember? I was dead sober." Relief washed over me. "So there was never any settlement? My dad never paid your family?" "Absolutely not," Jason said firmly. "My parents wouldn't have accepted money even if offered. My dad's a judge, for heaven's sake. Look, the accident was my fault. I was exhausted from finals week, and should have pulled over when I started feeling drowsy. But there was no cover-up, no drunk driving, nothing like that. Would you be willing to put that in writing?" I asked. "I know it's a strange request, but it's important." Jason agreed without hesitation, seeming concerned about why I would even ask such a thing. Before ending the call, I had one more question. "Jason, do you remember exactly when the accident happened? The month and year?" "December 2008, right before Christmas break," he replied immediately. "Hard to forget. I spent Christmas in a hospital bed with my parents bringing turkey dinner on a tray. Just as I remembered. Not March 2009, as Melissa's documents claimed." After hanging up, I called Mr. Harrington, asking if he could meet me that afternoon. I needed a legal expert's opinion on the documents Melissa had shown me. He agreed, sounding concerned by the urgency in my voice. In his office, I showed him the photos I'd taken. Mr. Harrington examined them carefully, occasionally making notes. "These appear authentic at first glance," he said finally. "But there are several red flags." He pointed out inconsistencies I hadn't noticed. The notary stamp used an incorrect state seal format for 2009, some legal phrases were outdated or incorrect, and the hospital forms used a logo that wasn't adopted until 2012. Most damning of all, the signature of the supposed notary belonged to someone who, according to state records, hadn't been licensed until 2011. "In my professional opinion, these are sophisticated forgeries," Mr. Harrington concluded. "Good enough to fool a layperson, but they wouldn't stand up to expert scrutiny." "May I ask how you obtained these documents?" I explained the situation with Melissa, including her attempt to blackmail me into dropping the investigation into the missing $56,000. Mr. Harrington's expression grew increasingly grave. "Sarah, what your sister has done goes beyond civil fraud. Creating falsified legal documents, including forged notary signatures, constitutes criminal forgery. Combined with the elder financial abuse and now blackmail, she could be facing serious criminal charges." "That's not what I want," I said quickly. "I just want the truth acknowledged and Dad's money returned to the estate where it belongs." Mr. Harrington nodded sympathetically. "I understand, but as the executor of your father's estate, I have legal obligations I cannot ignore. However, we can approach this strategically to minimize family trauma while ensuring justice is served." Together, we developed a plan. Rather than immediately involving law enforcement, Mr. Harrington would prepare a formal letter detailing the evidence of Melissa's fraud and forgery, along with a settlement agreement requiring her to return the misappropriated funds plus interest, resign as co-executor of the estate, and agree to supervised visitation of any remaining family assets. If she refused, we would proceed with both civil and criminal complaints. By the time I left Mr. Harrington's office, I felt simultaneously exhausted and empowered. The truth was on my side, but confronting Melissa again would be even more difficult now that I understood the lengths she would go to avoid consequences. On the drive home, my phone rang, an unknown Cincinnati number. It was Jason again. "Sarah, I've been thinking about our conversation, and something doesn't add up. Why would anyone create fake documents about an accident from 15 years ago? What's really going on?" I hesitated, reluctant to drag him into my family drama, but realized his statement could be crucial evidence if Melissa refused to cooperate. Taking a deep breath, I told him everything, about Dad's death, the missing money, Melissa's theft, and her elaborate blackmail attempt. "That's unbelievable," Jason said when I finished. "Listen, I'm heading to Columbus next week for a medical conference. I'd be happy to provide a sworn statement about the accident if it would help. Your sister shouldn't get away with this." His offer touched me deeply. After all these years, and despite the accident that had changed his life path, Jason was still the kind, principled person I remembered. We arranged to meet during his conference, and I thanked him for his willingness to help. When I arrived home, David was waiting anxiously. Lily was upstairs doing homework, so we had privacy to talk. I told him everything, both Melissa's accusations, and what I'd discovered about their fraudulent nature. "I knew she was desperate, but this is beyond anything I imagined," David said, shaking his head in disbelief. "Forging documents to frame you for a crime that never happened. That's pathological. The question is, what do I do now?" I sighed, collapsing onto the couch beside him. "Mr. Harrington's preparing a settlement offer, but what if she refuses? What if she releases these fake documents anyway, claiming they are real?" The damage to my reputation could be done before we prove they are forgeries. David took my hand. We'll face whatever comes together. Anyone who knows you would never believe you'd cover up something like that for 15 years. And we have Jason's testimony that it never happened. His unwavering support strengthened my resolve. We decided to proceed with Mr. Harrington's plan while preparing for the possibility that Melissa might escalate further before backing down. That evening, I received another text from Melissa. Have you made your decision? My flight's at noon tomorrow. I replied simply, meet me at Mr. Harrington's office at 9 a.m. We'll resolve this once and for all. She didn't respond, but I knew she'd be there. Melissa would never pass up what she perceived as a final opportunity to manipulate the situation to her advantage. What she didn't know was that this time, I was prepared for whatever she might throw at me. That night, I barely slept, rehearsing what I would say and anticipating Melissa's potential counterarguments. By morning, I felt oddly calm, the kind of calm that comes from absolute certainty in the righteousness of one's position. As David drove me to Mr. Harrington's office, I realized something profound had shifted within me. For my entire life, I had accepted Melissa's narrative that she was the exceptional sister while I was merely average. I had believed I needed her approval and validation. Now, facing her most extreme betrayal, I finally understood that her opinion of me had never mattered. What mattered was the truth, and the truth was on my side. Mr. Harrington's office was quiet when I arrived, 5 minutes before our scheduled meeting. His assistant showed me to the conference room, where we had read Dad's will just a few weeks earlier. Mr. Harrington was already there, documents neatly arranged before him, a recorder placed in the center of the table. For legal protection, he explained, gesturing to the device. We'll notify her that we're recording, of course. I nodded, taking a seat and trying to calm my racing heart. At precisely 9 a.m., the assistant announced Melissa's arrival. My sister walked in looking immaculate as always, designer suit, perfect hair, confident smile. Only the tightness around her eyes betrayed any tension. Well, this is formal, she commented, glancing at the recorder before taking a seat across from me. I assumed we'd be having a private conversation, Sarah. This isn't just between us anymore, I replied evenly. It involves Dad's estate, which makes Mr. Harrington an appropriate mediator. Mr. Harrington cleared his throat. Before we begin, I need to inform you that this conversation is being recorded for legal purposes. Do you consent to this recording, Ms. Matthews? Melissa hesitated momentarily before nodding. Fine. Let's get this over with. I assume Sarah has decided to be reasonable about our father's medical expenses. Actually, I said, we've discovered some concerning discrepancies in the documentation you provided. I placed a copy of the bank statements showing transfers to ML Investments on the table. These aren't medical expenses, Melissa. They are direct transfers to your personal accounts. Her expression didn't change. As I explained, I was managing investments on Dad's behalf. Those transfers were perfectly legitimate. Mr. Harrington interjected gently. We've contacted all the healthcare providers listed on your receipts. None of them have any record of providing services to Robert Matthews in the amounts or on the dates indicated. In fact, several of these providers confirmed they never treated your father at all. For the first time, Melissa's composure slipped slightly. She recovered quickly, her voice hardening. This is ridiculous. Are you accusing me of something, Mr. Harrington? We are simply seeking clarity, he replied diplomatically. As executor of your father's estate, it's my responsibility to ensure all assets are properly accounted for before distribution to the heirs. Melissa turned to me, her eyes narrowing. I see what this is. You've poisoned Mr. Harrington against me because you're jealous. You've always resented my success, my lifestyle. Now you're trying to paint me as some kind of criminal because you can't stand that Dad trusted me with his finances. This isn't about jealousy, I said calmly. It's about $56,000 that should have been part of Dad's estate, but somehow disappeared. Money that should have been divided between us according to his will. And what about your secrets, Sarah? Melissa's voice took on a dangerous edge. Have you told Mr. Harrington about your drunk driving accident? About how Dad paid off the Powell family to keep you out of jail? Mr. Harrington looked confused, but I had anticipated this move. I slid a folder across the table. You mean these documents? The ones you created to blackmail me into dropping the investigation. Melissa didn't touch the folder. Those are legitimate legal documents. Dad kept them hidden to protect you. That would be quite difficult, I replied, considering the accident occurred in December 2008, but these documents are dated March 2009. The notary whose signature appears on them wasn't licensed until 2011. And Jason Powell, the person I supposedly injured, has provided a sworn statement that I was never driving the car, and neither of us was intoxicated. The color drained from Melissa's face. You contacted Jason? I did. He was quite surprised to learn he'd received a settlement he never knew about for injuries caused by a driver who wasn't behind the wheel. Melissa's eyes darted between me and Mr. Harrington. This is absurd. You're manufacturing evidence against me. We also have the original files these documents were printed from, I continued, though this was a bluff. The metadata shows they were created 2 days ago, on your laptop. That's forgery, Melissa. Criminal forgery, on top of elder financial abuse and attempted blackmail. Mr. Harrington slid another document toward Melissa. This is a settlement agreement. It requires you to return the $56,000 plus interest to your father's estate, resign as co-executor, and submit to supervised access for any remaining estate matters. In return, Ms. Matthews has agreed not to pursue criminal charges. Melissa stared at the document, her carefully constructed facade crumbling. For a moment, I caught a glimpse of the scared, desperate person beneath the confident exterior, someone who had made terrible choices and now faced the consequences. This is your only opportunity to resolve this matter privately, Mr. Harrington added gently. If you choose not to sign, we will be forced to file a formal complaint with both the probate court and the district attorney's office. The silence stretched for nearly a minute as Melissa weighed her options. Finally, she spoke, her voice barely above a whisper. I never meant for it to go this far. What happened, Melissa? I asked, genuinely wanting to understand. Why did you need the money so badly? She looked up, and to my shock, there were tears in her eyes. It started small. I made some bad investments, lost more than I could afford. I borrowed from Dad's account, intending to pay it back before anyone noticed. But then I lost that money too, and had to take more to cover the first amount. She laughed bitterly. The classic embezzler's downward spiral. But the forgeries? I pressed. The elaborate story about me driving drunk. I panicked, she admitted. When you showed me those bank statements, I knew I needed something powerful enough to make you back off. I remembered the accident, how much it affected you even though you weren't driving. I thought if I could make you believe you were responsible, and Dad had covered it up, you'd be too afraid of the consequences to pursue the missing money. The confession stunned me into silence. Mr. Harrington, ever the professional, simply pushed the settlement agreement closer to Melissa. Do you wish to sign this agreement, or shall we proceed with formal legal action? Melissa picked up the pen, her hand trembling slightly. The $56,000 plus interest. I don't have that much liquid right now. Most of it went to cover investment losses, and what was left? She glanced down at her expensive watch. The agreement includes a payment plan, Mr. Harrington explained. You'll have 12 months to return the full amount, with the first payment due immediately. She nodded slowly, then signed her name on the indicated line. As I watched, I felt no triumph, only sadness. My sister, the person I had admired and envied my entire life, had betrayed not just me, but our father's trust in the most fundamental way. After Mr. Harrington witnessed and notarized the agreement, Melissa stood to leave. At the door, she paused and turned back to me. For what it's worth, I am sorry, Sarah. Not just for taking the money, but for everything. The way I've treated you, the things I've said. You deserved better from your sister. I didn't know how to respond. Part of me wanted to offer forgiveness, to salvage something from the wreckage of our relationship. Another part couldn't get past the magnitude of her betrayal and the lengths she had gone to cover it up. I need time, I said finally. This isn't something I can just move past immediately. She nodded, understanding. My flight leaves in a few hours. I should go. After she left, Mr. Harrington reviewed next steps with me. Melissa had written a check for the first installment of the repayment plan. She would make monthly payments until the full amount was restored. The house sale would proceed as planned, with Mr. Harrington now serving as sole executor. What happens if she doesn't make the payments? I asked. The agreement includes consequences for default, he assured me. Including the option to pursue the criminal charges we've set aside today. But I believe she'll comply. She has too much to lose if this becomes public, her career, her reputation. I left his office feeling hollow. The victory seemed Pyrrhic, tainted by the destruction of what I had always believed was a complicated, but fundamentally loving sibling relationship. On the drive home, I wondered if Melissa and I would ever find a way back to being sisters again, or if some betrayals were simply too profound to overcome. When I arrived home, Lily was just getting back from school. How was your meeting, Mom? She asked, dropping her backpack by the door despite my frequent reminders to hang it up. It was productive, I replied, not wanting to burden her with the ugly details. Aunt Melissa and I worked things out. Is she still coming to my ballet recital next month? Lily asked innocently. The question caught me off guard. I hadn't considered the impact our estrangement would have on Lily's relationship with her aunt. Despite everything, Melissa was still her family. I'm not sure, honey. She's very busy with work. Lily nodded, accepting this explanation without question. That's okay. I recorded a video of my routine to send her anyway. My daughter's resilience and generous spirit brought tears to my eyes. In that moment, I realized that while Melissa's betrayal had broken something between us that might never be fully repaired, I couldn't allow it to poison the next generation. For Lily's sake, I would need to find a path toward some kind of reconciliation, however limited it might be. That evening, as David and I discussed everything that had happened, my phone chimed with a text from Melissa, boarding my flight now. Thank you for not pursuing charges. I know I don't deserve your mercy, but I'm grateful for it. I'll make this right, I promise. I showed the message to David. Do you think she means it? He considered for a moment. I think she's been living in a house of cards for a long time, and it finally collapsed. Maybe hitting bottom will be the wake-up call she needs. I hope so, I said, though doubt lingered. Melissa had always been skilled at saying what people wanted to hear. As if reading my thoughts, David added, "Either way, we'll be watching carefully this time. No more blind trust." He was right. The naive faith I'd placed in my sister was gone forever, replaced by a cautious skepticism that would color all our future interactions. But as painful as this ordeal had been, it had also given me something valuable, the realization that I was stronger and more capable than I'd ever given myself credit for. For years, I had measured myself against Melissa's achievements and found myself wanting. Now I understood that true success wasn't measured in designer watches or prestigious job titles, but in integrity, resilience, and the courage to stand up for what was right, even against family. As Lily called us for dinner, her voice bright with stories about her day at school, I felt a profound gratitude for the life I had built. It might not be as glamorous or exciting as Melissa's Manhattan existence, but it was authentic, grounded in love and honesty. And that, I finally understood, was worth more than all the superficial trappings of success my sister had sacrificed her integrity to obtain. I've been watching this family drama unfold and I am on the edge of my seat. Before we find out how everything wraps up, I'd love to know what you think about family loyalty versus honesty. Have you ever had to confront a loved one about a betrayal? How did you handle it? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and hit that like button if you're invested in Sarah's journey. I'm reading every comment and love connecting with all of you who are experiencing this emotional rollercoaster with me. Now, let's see how this family saga concludes. 6 months passed before I heard from Melissa again, beyond the monthly checks that arrived punctually for the repayment plan. Each envelope contained only the check, no note, no personal message, until the July payment, which included a small card. "Lily's recital is next week. Would it be okay if I attended? I understand if the answer is no." The request caught me off guard. Part of me wanted to refuse, to protect our family circle from her disruptive presence. But another part remembered Lily's face when she asked if her aunt would see her dance. After discussing it with David, I replied with a brief text, "The recital is Thursday at 6 p.m. Lily would be happy to see you there." Melissa's response came quickly, "Thank you. I won't intrude on your family time afterward unless invited." The day of the recital, I spotted Melissa slipping into the back row of the auditorium just before the lights dimmed. She looked different, her designer outfit replaced by a simple blouse and slacks, her usually perfect hair pulled back in a casual ponytail. She caught my eye briefly and offered a hesitant smile before focusing her attention on the stage. Lily danced beautifully, her face glowing with joy as she executed the routine she'd practiced for months. When she took her bow, I heard Melissa's enthusiastic applause from the back of the room. After the performance, we found Lily backstage, surrounded by her fellow dancers. "You were amazing, sweetheart." I hugged her tightly, then stepped back as David presented her with a bouquet of pink roses. "Thanks, Mom." Lily beamed, then looked past us. "Is Aunt Melissa here?" I saw her sitting in the back. Before I could answer, Melissa approached cautiously, holding a small gift bag. "You were wonderful, Lily. Your arabesque has improved so much since the video you sent me." Lily's face lit up. "You came." She threw her arms around her aunt, who looked momentarily startled before returning the hug. "I wouldn't have missed it," Melissa said softly. "I have something for you." She handed Lily the gift bag. Inside was a delicate silver necklace with a ballet slipper charm. "It's beautiful," Lily exclaimed. "Can I put it on now?" As Melissa helped Lily with the clasp, she glanced at me uncertainly. Taking a deep breath, I made a decision. "We are going for ice cream to celebrate." Would you like to join us, Melissa? The surprise on her face was genuine. Are you sure? David stepped forward. It's okay with us if it's okay with you. That evening marked the beginning of a cautious reconciliation. Over ice cream, Melissa told Lily about her own brief childhood dance lessons, a detail I'd completely forgotten, and asked thoughtful questions about Lily's school and friends. She avoided any mention of money or status, focusing instead on connecting with her niece. When Lily went to the restroom, Melissa turned to us, her expression serious. Thank you for this. I know I haven't earned your forgiveness yet, but I'm trying to be better. What's changed? I asked, still wary despite her seemingly genuine remorse. She looked down at her half-eaten ice cream. Everything, really. After what happened, after what I did, I couldn't keep pretending my life was as perfect as I made it seem. I've been seeing a therapist, trying to understand why I was so desperate for status and recognition that I would betray my own family. And have you figured it out? David asked, his tone neutral. Melissa smiled sadly. It's a work in progress. But I've made some changes. I left my high-pressure finance job for a position with a non-profit. The pay is about a third of what I was making, but the work is meaningful. I downsized my apartment, sold a lot of the expensive things I used to think were so important. I wanted to believe her, but years of Melissa's manipulations made me hesitant. That sounds like a major life overhaul. It is, she admitted. And I don't expect you to trust that it's genuine, not after everything. Actions matter more than words, and I'm trying to let my actions speak for me. As Lily returned to the table, the conversation shifted back to lighter topics. When we parted ways that evening, Melissa hugged Lily goodbye, but maintained a respectful distance from David and me. Thank you again for letting me be part of today, she said simply. Over the following months, Melissa's transformation continued to unfold. She made her monthly payments without fail, often including small, thoughtful gifts for Lily, never expensive or showy, just things that demonstrated she was paying attention to her niece's interests and passions. She sent me occasional text messages, not pushing for more contact than I was comfortable with, but keeping the door open for communication. 4 months after the recital, her check arrived with a note requesting a meeting with me, alone. There's something important I need to discuss with you, she wrote. Nothing bad, I promise. We met at a quiet cafe near my school. Melissa arrived carrying a manila envelope and looking nervous, an expression I rarely associated with my typically confident sister. Thank you for meeting me, she began. I've been working on something, and I wanted to share it with you in person. She slid the envelope across the table. Inside was a legal document transferring her portion of our parents' house proceeds to a college fund for Lily. The amount was slightly over $120,000, her entire inheritance. I don't understand, I said, looking up in confusion. You're giving up your inheritance? Melissa nodded. I've been doing a lot of thinking about what Mom and Dad would want. They worked so hard their whole lives to give us opportunities, to make sure we were taken care of. I betrayed that when I took Dad's money for myself. But this is your inheritance, I protested. Dad intended you to have it. And I'll honor that intention by making sure it goes to his granddaughter's future, she replied firmly. I don't need the money, Sarah. What I need is to make amends, real, meaningful amends, for what I did. I stared at the document, unsure how to respond. This feels like too much. It's not about the money, Melissa insisted. It's about showing you that I'm serious about changing, about being the kind of sister and aunt that you and Lily deserve. I don't expect this to fix everything between us overnight, but I hope it's a start. The gesture touched me deeply, not because of the financial value, but because it represented a genuine sacrifice from someone who had always been defined by material success. Still, I hesitated. "Let me think about it," I said finally. "This is a major decision." Melissa nodded, understanding. "Take all the time you need. The offer won't expire." That evening, I showed the document to David. "Do you think she is sincere?" I asked. He considered carefully. "I think she is trying to be. People can change when they are forced to confront the consequences of their actions. The question is whether you're ready to believe in that change." The truth was, I wasn't sure. The wound of Melissa's betrayal had begun to heal, but trust, once broken, couldn't be restored with a single grand gesture, no matter how meaningful. It would take time, consistency, and continued evidence of genuine change. After much consideration, I called Melissa with a counterproposal. We would accept half of her inheritance for Lily's college fund, but the other half would remain hers. Additionally, I suggested we begin having regular family dinners once a month, a small step toward rebuilding our relationship. To my surprise, she agreed immediately. "I'd like that very much," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Thank you for giving me another chance." Our first family dinner was awkward, with conversation stilted and everyone hyper-aware of avoiding sensitive topics. But the second was easier, and by the third, something resembling normal family interaction had begun to emerge. Melissa formed a genuine bond with Lily, showing interest in her life without the condescension that had characterized her previous interactions with us. A year after the confrontation in Mr. Harrington's office, Melissa made the final payment to complete the $56,000 restitution. To mark the occasion, she asked if she could take both David and me to dinner, her treat, at a modest local restaurant rather than the upscale establishments she once favored. Over dinner, she raised her glass in a toast. "To new beginnings," she said simply. As we clinked glasses, I realized something profound had shifted within me. The anger and hurt that had consumed me for so long had gradually transformed into something else. Not forgiveness exactly, not yet, but an openness to the possibility that people, even those who have hurt us deeply, can change if given the chance. Melissa would never again be the sister I had blindly trusted before discovering her betrayal. But perhaps she could become something equally valuable, a sister I understood in all her flawed humanity, with whom I could build a relationship based on honesty rather than illusion. The road ahead would not be without its challenges. Trust, once shattered, is rebuilt slowly, brick by careful brick. There would be setbacks and moments of doubt. But watching Melissa laugh with David about some workplace anecdote, I felt a cautious hope that our family might emerge from this ordeal not just intact, but ultimately stronger for having faced the truth together. As for the $56,000 that had triggered this entire journey, it now seemed almost insignificant compared to the valuable lessons it had taught us all. Melissa had learned that status and material wealth were poor substitutes for genuine connection. I had discovered strength and resilience I never knew I possessed. And Lily had witnessed firsthand that even the most serious rifts could be mended with time, effort, and sincere remorse. In the end, my 9-year-old daughter hadn't just exposed a financial betrayal, she had inadvertently set in motion a chain of events that forced our entire family to confront uncomfortable truths and rebuild on a foundation of authenticity rather than appearances. The path had been painful, but as I looked around the table at the family I now had, imperfect, healing, but fundamentally honest, I couldn't help but feel that we had all, in our own ways, found our way home. Thank you all for staying with me through this incredible journey of betrayal, revelation, and ultimately, healing. If this story resonated with you, I'd love to hear about your own experiences with family relationships, that had to be rebuilt after trust was broken. What did you learn? How did you find forgiveness, or decide that some boundaries needed to remain? Share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you found value in this story, please hit that like button, subscribe to my channel for more real-life family stories, and share this video with someone who might need to hear that even the deepest wounds can heal with time and effort. I'm grateful for each and every one of you who took the time to listen to my family's story, and I hope the lessons we learned might help you navigate your own family dynamics. Until next time, remember that sometimes the most powerful form of justice isn't revenge, but the opportunity for genuine transformation.